A recent British Medical Journal article on integrated care made the observation that the patient is the only element in the system that crosses all the boundaries. I wonder if you could make a comment on the role of the patient in the future of their healthcare based on that observation.
I think we have a lot to learn from the multidisciplinary team that the geriatricians pioneered some years ago. But it does work extremely well. Everybody in the team is equal, everybody gives way to everybody's view on the patient and their future and their discharge from hospital. It's a good model. I think it's really important that the patients understand considerably more about their health, that the risk and benefit, or benefit and risk of their medication, because they do need to take much more responsibility of their health care. This will help not only themselves, they get a better quality of life from that, it'll help the carers and it'll help society, and it'll start to diminish very gradually litigation. More responsibility into society.
So how do you reconcile the paradox between the molecular medicine approach, which is highly objective, with the art of medicine, which takes into account the patient more as an individual, a whole individual?
I think it's going to be very challenging, and I think it's going to require a lot of education in the medical school, because indeed, as you say, although they require their scientific qualifications to get into the profession, it is an art. It's based on experience, epidemiology, which they absorb, don't they, all their training and experience as a doctor. So they're going to need some help with shifting, as the patients are going to need help. But we have got one good thing that bridges both the doctor and the patient, and that's the patient-doctor relationship. And what I hope to see is a better discussion between them and an absolute joint decision-making. That as the patient, who will become more informed through all sorts, and remember they have not only information but myths, that they can develop a conversation and take a joint decision in going forward. I think that's going to be a challenge both to the doctors in their training and society, because it's got to understand considerably more about benefit, risk and side effects and adverse effects.
So my next question is really around patient safety. And we know that clinical trial criteria can tend to be too stringent, and often companies are asked to go back and to broaden those. We're also learning that patients are willing to accept more risk in their treatments, particularly patients with very serious diseases like cancer. I wonder if you can comment on how we could create a system that can account for that patient being willing to take more of a risk in a system that is generally risk averse.
I think you raise an absolutely crucial point here, because certainly if you talk to the cancer patients, they will say very clearly we're already in an unsafe world and a little more unsafeness doesn't bother us. And we have noticed at the European Medicines Agency that the CHMP were amazed as to the risk the patients would actually take. I think patients are going to have to be involved in the clinical trials much earlier, right from the beginning, so that as the causal signals come up, as the medicines approach, they're going to be asked to comment. Does this worry you? Can you live with this? Is this payoff good? You know, really getting engaged in conversation. Again, pursuing the whole role of dual decision making. I think that's the way forward. It's how you actually involve the patients, because you know there's no such thing as an average patient. That's the challenge to the regulatory system. Who do you ask to comment? And I can only say that I hope the pharmaceutical industry will absolutely drive ahead to involve the patients from day one of the clinical trials. What is important to you? How much can you stand the side effects here? What is it that you're looking for? And I think we will go ahead as long as there's a close partnership.
So given the change that needs to happen there, who will drive that change?
I think the patients will drive it. It's much safer that they drive it, because if the poor old pharmaceutical industry, which is under so much pressure these days, starts to drive it themselves, the critique will be, my goodness, the industry is trying to get in bed with the patient even from day one before the drugs hit the market. So I think the patients It's an interesting concept. The patient, who is sort of small in this whole scale of things, is the one to drive this, and I think they will drive it.